Hey guys, Black Bart here. Bringing to you a new series of just quick comparison between a bunch of ARPG games. Most notably Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Path of Exile, Grim Dawn, and then some two new boys to the street, which is going to be Last Epoch, which is going into Kickstarter right now, and then Wolcen, which is also in early access. Went to Kickstarter about a year and a half ago and has been producing since then. We're going to start off with the easy stuff. We're gonna start off with kind of gameplay, graphics, overall smoothness, and then we'll get into some of the gearing and things of that nature, and kind of just hit on the major points, things that I feel are good and things that should be taken further on into this growing genre that has kind of exploded recently, which is good. I like it. Okay, to get started with this comparison, we're going to start with the easy stuff. We're going to start with graphics, which not necessarily the most important topic, but some people do find that it is an important thing to talk about. At the forefront of this group is going to be Lords of Mayhem for sure. It's running off CryEngine. It has night and day cycles. It has dynamic weather, a bunch of other things that just make it head and shoulders above all of the others. In a number 2 slot is going to probably be Diablo 3, even though it's kind of more on the cartoony side, but not that big a deal. And then from there you have Path of Exile and Grim Dawn and Last Epoch, all the way down to Diablo 2, which is a 15-year-old game where the graphics don't really matter. Moving on, we're going to get into another big topic, and that's smoothness of gameplay. This one has a surprising top. For me personally, Diablo 2 was one of the smoothest running games I have within the genre that I have played. Obviously, it's a very old game, and it's had less 3D graphics and stuff like that to be able to hamper its ability to do stuff, but it did exactly what you wanted it to do, and the studio continued with that with Diablo 3. It is known, I mean, obviously it's a AAA title. It is extremely smooth. It does, like I said, exactly what you want it to do, and that feels good in this genre because you got a lot of stuff coming at you. You really need to be able to react accordingly. Grim Dawn, I have to put down marks on it. I didn't feel that it was that smooth. As far as the gameplay experience, it felt a little clunky, kind of like some of the other newer ones, Last Epoch as well, although I think Last Epoch was a little bit better. And Wolcen is dealing with some of the 3D elements as far as targeting goes, and can use some work, again, very early in production there. Path of Exile I'm going to bring up as well too. For the most part, it's pretty ironed out at this point, even though it started very clunky, and it feels a lot better once you get into playing it and get used to the engine. So overall, I would rank the D2, D3, Path of Exile kind of sneaking in there, and then the other 3 kind of down there at the bottom. They just don't feel too smooth yet, but moving in a good direction. Moving on to the gear. This is something that is very close to my heart because it really boils down to how much you replay the game based on what gear you're grinding. And it's one of the reasons why a couple of these games have a lot more potential than others, and or lasted as long as they have. You can't mention this topic without starting with Diablo 2. It really is the archetype for the genre as we know it today. There are some problems with the system, but overall it was extremely well thought out, and just the having stats that are all randomized for the most part. Some uniques, there were a little bit too much uniques, and the rune words kind of took over as well, but the randomization of the stats and stuff like that really brought this genre into a world where it can't be touched anymore. So you have to have that in the game in order to be an ARPG. There's just no way around it. So Diablo 3, I think, failed miserably in this sense, where they converted most of their randomized gear over to sets and uniques almost exclusively, aside from the first time you level in a season. Other than that, you're only going to be wearing uniques or set pieces, and there's no reason to even look at anything green or yellow or blue or whatever other colors they put into games now. So I think they missed an opportunity there, and because of that, it actually messed up their crafting system, which wasn't very good either. Anyway, we'll get into that later. Path of Exile has a very good balance between uniques and yellows, or greens or blues. Again, because of the fact that they make it almost, it's not almost mandatory, it is mandatory to have a few pieces of yellow gear in your stuff. So you have to search for that randomized thing. There are also crafted items and other random drops that are just straight better than uniques, especially with Elder and Shaper items and things like that. And that's always good. You want to balance how much the uniques kind of take over. And they've done a pretty damn good job with that. My only criticism is that there are too many uniques, I think, that are super powerful, and you should focus more on the yellows, getting people crafting, getting in and just really making gear specific for yourself, basically forcing people to look at a lot of stuff that drops on the ground, because that's half the fun, is finding stuff, not buying it off an auction house. Anyway, you get into Grim Dawn. I don't have too much experience on this end. There are some set items. I didn't find that they overpowered the game. And the gearing was very D2-esque. It was good all around. I have no problems with that game in general with the gearing. I didn't see a crafting system, so I'm not sure how that plays into it, but I may be mistaken on that. Again, like I said, I haven't put too many hours into that game comparatively. One of the newer games coming out, Wolcen, has a very good balance of uniques to yellow, green, blue drops, and it really makes you look at all of those other gears instead of just going, oh, it's blue, I'm not even gonna bother looking at it. So it really makes that portion of optimizing your gear up to the very top, which is awesome. And the uniques that are in the game are super specialized to where it's not really helpful for you to wear a whole bunch of them, because you have to really build your build around some of these uniques, and I hope they keep it that way. It is still early access, so we'll see how that works out. Next up is going to be the Last Epoch, and yes, it is Epoch, not Epic, but we'll get into that later. They have a pretty good system. There's a lot of optimization that's still going to be done, obviously, but the stat array is nice. The gear is very randomized. I think the uniques are a little too powerful, and there are a lot of them even at this point in the game. And you can actually get away with wearing more of those than in Path of Exile. But we'll see how that scales up after Kickstarter and kind of get up to the higher levels and see how resistances and things like that work in the late game. So that's still a topic to be discussed. I hope they don't go in the direction of putting way too many uniques into the game, because then again, it makes it to where you don't look at much of the stuff that drops on the ground. So anywho, that's my opinion on the gear. I think I would rank gear-wise Path of Exile up at the very top. Wolcen, Last Epoch, D2, all like right together, and then Grim Dawn underneath those three, and then D3 just very clearly down at the bottom, being as they completely screwed over their entire the use of anything other than uniques or set items. All right. Awesome. Well, obviously I had some Last Epoch showing in the background. They're going through their Kickstarter, so I'm just kind of showing some of the gameplay there in the background. I'd like to just shout out to anybody who's been to any of my Twitch stuff or watching this stream. Definitely come in, watch me at either place. I'll come out with a few more of these videos here doing some comparisons on the active skill trees, the passive skill trees, that kind of the background gameplay, and then the other systems in the game, crafting, late game, etc. And I hope to see you guys there. All right. Thanks again. I will catch you guys later.